Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson. Tonight, an awful lot happening at this hour in the Commonwealth of Virginia. The governor of Virginia, Ralph Northam, made headlines you saw this week by endorsing infanticide on camera. That wasn't a big deal to most people in the national press, but this afternoon, on the first day of Black History Month, a picture surfaced, a yearbook photograph from 1984, of Northam wearing either blackface or a KKK robe in a photograph. That's a problem for Ralph Northam. Trace Gallagher is following every development in this story for us tonight. He brings us the latest. Trace?
And Tucker, we should note for clarity, Virginia Governor Ralph Northam has now confirmed that he was in the controversial picture in his 1984 medical school yearbook showing someone dressed in a KKK robe and hood and another wearing blackface. Northam did not state which costume he was wearing, but did issue a statement that reads in part, quoting, "I am deeply sorry for the decision I made to appear as I did in this photo and for the hurt that decision caused then and now. This behavior is not in keeping with who I am today and the values I have fought for throughout my career in the military, in medicine, and in public service." The Virginia Republican Party is condemning the picture, saying, quote, "Racism has no place in Virginia. These pictures are wholly inappropriate. If Governor Northam appeared in blackface or dressed in a KKK robe, he should resign immediately." This marks the second time in recent days that Northam has drawn heat from Republicans. He was also called out to explain his support for a failed measure that would have permitted full-term abortions. Listen.
If a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue.
Northam worked as a pediatric neurologist before being elected to the Virginia State Senate back in 2007. It is notable that Northam was also quick to condemn the racial violence that rocked Charlottesville back in August 2017. And Virginia Democrats might be less resistant to fight any potential resignation of Northam because Virginia's Lieutenant Governor, Justin Fairfax, is an African-American Democrat. We will come in with breaking news if it happens. Tucker.
And it looks like it might. Trace Gallagher, thank you very much. Well, as you just saw on tape, Northam came out in favor of infanticide this week. We're not exaggerating. Northam said it slowly and clearly. You just saw it. Then he reiterated his views just in case he wasn't clear the first time. In a statement today, Northam explained that abortion at any stage is a positive good, and this is worth listening to carefully, because, quote, reproductive freedom leads to economic freedom. In other words, abortion is virtuous because it makes women more efficient employees, better and more dutiful servants of Northam's donors. They can work longer hours without worrying about anybody but their bosses. Northam is in favor of that, so are most prominent Democrats. They're serving their own masters in the private equity class. Well, the press covered all of this, of course, but not in the way you'd imagine. To the reporters at the Washington Post, the real crime here was Republicans complaining about Ralph Northam. Quote, abortion bill draws GOP outrage against Virginia Governor Northam, comma, Democratic legislators. That's an actual headline. Republicans whine too much. Infanticide, not a big deal. And then all of that changed, you heard. On today, the first day of Black History Month, the site called Big League Politics uncovered the photo Trace just told us about. What's so interesting about it is that Ralph Northam spent a lot of his last campaign calling his opponent racist again and again and again. The closing of that campaign was an unending flurry of ads putting his Republican opponent up against pictures of what happened at Charlottesville, the atrocities at Charlottesville. There was no evidence that his opponent was a racist, but Northam said it a lot. And yet, strikingly, Northam's opponents never took pictures of himself in blackface or in a Klan robe. So there is some irony in this story. As of right now, a number of prominent Democrats, Kamala Harris among them, have called for Northam's resignation over this. But there are many in his party, particularly in Virginia, who are standing by him. Those Democrats personally oppose blackface and Klan robes as a matter of conscience, but they don't want them relegated to some back alley. They want blackface and Klan robes to be safe, legal, and rare, a private matter between a politician and his donors. For now, Governor Northam will be kept comfortable. You can be certain of that. He'll be resuscitated if that's what his party desires. Dave Ruben hosts the Ruben Report on YouTube, and he joins us tonight. Do you find it striking, Dave, that in the very week that these comments come out on camera, where they're really kind of unequivocal. He's saying if a child is born gravely disabled, you have the right to kill the child. And that's sort of dismissed as like something only the crackpots care about. And then a 1984 yearbook photo looks to me like it's going to end his career tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that a politician could have much worse of a week than he is having right at this very moment. You know, Tucker, one of the things that I know you and I disagree on respectfully is I consider myself begrudgingly pro-choice, and I've said that 20 weeks should be the cutoff, and I know that that's not, I know that that's an imperfect position. But the left has gone so crazy on abortion, and it was illustrated by what he said this week, that that's making decent liberals have a harder time taking moderate positions. And then when it comes to this photograph, it's like, look, it's only within the last, 2-3 months that we were dealing with high school yearbooks and Brett Kavanaugh, and there was going to be no chance that people on the left were going to be willing to give him a second chance or explain himself or anything else. And it's unclear now whether he's the one that's in blackface or the KKK hood. He didn't even say which one he was. I mean, by the rules that they're establishing, he has to step down. And look, it's awful. Nobody should be doing that kind of stuff. That being said, there is a slight piece of me that just thinks we should caution this idea of mutually assured destruction based on what all of our pasts are. That's not a pass on any specific thing in this or anything else, but we should worry about where that will lead us as a country, as we're all imperfect people. But this is a case where I see no situation where he can't step down. He's from the party that calls all of you guys, the conservatives, racist. Well, how can they possibly defend him right now?
I think that's right. And I have to say, I just keep thinking this. I lived in this country in 1984. I was dating the same girl I'm with right now. It wasn't that long ago. Nobody I knew ever had pictures of Klan robes on their. I mean, I don't want to add to the pile-on, but like, where was this? That was weird behavior even in 1984, I'm here to tell you.
Look, you're a little older than me. I was only 8 in 1984. I don't remember anyone doing that. But again, look, people do all sorts of weird things. People wear weird, offending Halloween costumes and all that. And I think people have a right to wear and say whatever they want. It doesn't mean you're not going to have some fallout or face the repercussions for that. That's fine. But by the rules we're playing with right now, they cannot let him off the hook. And if they do, it would actually fuel the fire that the really far left progressives are always stoking, which is that the establishment or the main part of the Democrats or whatever it is racist. And then they really have a point. So I think they have to get rid of him. And look, we've got to figure out a way to acknowledge that people change over time. I don't know what his personal beliefs are. And yes, he called his opponent racist, as you pointed out before, and I don't know that there's any evidence of that. And sadly, we live in a time where most of the people who are calling everyone else racists and bigots and homophobes and the rest of it usually are the ones harboring those actual feelings, because I don't see it that much from conservatives these days.
Or from anybody. I don't even know what they're talking about. I agree with you completely. Yeah. Dave Ruben, thank you for that wise analysis. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tucker.
Chris Hahn is a Democrat. He's a radio host, a frequent guest on this show, a former aide to Senator Chuck Schumer, and joins us tonight. So do you find it a little strange, Chris Hahn, that you can come out in public and say, yeah, it's okay to kill a child who has been born, which is what he said, and then he said it again, and everyone's like, oh, that's not a big deal, infanticide, killing a human being, whatever. Narrow's okay with it. And then on the basis of a yearbook photo, he's probably going to resign, I would assume, by the end of tonight. You think it's kind of strange?
Well, I've discussed the infanticide thing ad nauseum. He was not calling for the killing of babies born alive. He was talking about difficult end-of-life decisions for babies who were born severely disabled and may die unless kept on resuscitation. But let's save that for another day, Tucker. He needs to resign right now. He needs to resign. Fine. He needs to resign right now. He has to go. There is no apology here. Now, look, he may have changed, but serving in public life is a privilege. And it should not be tainted by the stain of such racism.
Look, I'm against racism. I make an argument pretty explicitly against it almost every night on this show, for which I'm often called a racist.
Yeah.
But I'm totally opposed to racism, and I mean it. I just wonder what the standard is. Keith Ellison was a member of the Nation of Islam who called for a black ethno-state and worshipped Louis Farrakhan as a godlike figure, but that's totally cool because why?
Look, I mean, there are lots of things that need to. I don't know all the details of that, so I don't want to go down that path.
No. He was a member of the Nation of Islam. He called for a black ethno-state, and he was the vice chairman of your party. And nobody said anything about it. I must have mentioned that 30 times in the show. Nobody cared. So I'm just wondering, what is the standard exactly?
You know, look, I think the standard right here is very clear when it comes to Ralph Norton and what he did, and I think he needs to go immediately. And I also think there are lots of people in politics right now, like Steve King in Iowa, who need to go immediately. Because I think that we have too many people that play around with racism in this country and get to stay.
Okay, but what about, I mean, calling for a black ethno-state, and I'm not exaggerating, we've explained it many times in detail on this show. Yeah. Maybe there's an argument in favor of that. I don't know what it would be, but why is that okay? I mean, Steve King, whatever he said, he didn't call for an ethno-state, and Keith Ellison
he called himself a white nationalist. But
no, I don't know that he called it. Whatever. Look, I'm not here to defend Steve King. I'm saying he didn't say that, and Keith Ellison did, and he's the number 2 man in your party. So, like, what? I mean, why is that all right? Tell the rest of us what the standard is.
And why is it all right that Steve Scalise said he was David Duke without the baggage, and he's the number 2 ranking Republican in the House of Representatives?
Yeah. Okay.
So, I mean, there's a lot of things that need to be sorted out, and we need to get to a place where we don't have racism and we don't have people who are stoking racial issues in a bad way in our government.
Well, I agree with that 100%. I agree. People should not be punished or rewarded on the basis of their skin color. That's the definition of racism. And it's not only is it happening, it's expanding in this country, and the left is pushing it.
Yep.
So, and they should be ashamed of that. But let me ask you this.
Well, the right allows him to stick around for a long time.
What about poor Ed Gillespie, who, whatever you think of Gillespie's politics, are actually not my politics, but there's no evidence he's a racist. He's like a very decent man, actually. And this Northam character called him a racist, like, repeatedly, and he's the one in the blackface or the Klan outfit. Like, does someone owe him an apology at some point?
No. Gillespie ran a campaign Gillespie ran a campaign. He ran a campaign that was all about the statue of Robert E. Lee. Now, what does that stand for? Who is that appealing to? That's appealing to. You know who that's appealing to? Can I tell you who that statue appeals to? It appeals to 1984 Ralph Northam and people just like it.
Oh, but hold on. I live here, okay?
Yeah.
Right across the river from Virginia. He did not run a campaign that was, quote, all about a Robert E. Lee statue. There's no evidence he's a racist. I don't think there is a picture of Ed Gillespie in blackface or a Klan hood. I'm just saying, if the guy in the Klan hood is calling you a racist, maybe you deserve an apology. Yeah. That's all I'm saying. Do you think or no?
I don't think he deserves an apology. I thought his campaign did a lot of race baiting, not just the Robert E. Lee statues,
they were against
but the pitbull and the hoodies coming to get you. It's just, look, it is what it is. That's politics, and that's where he was. That's the campaign. Ed Gillespie, who is not even from Virginia, not even from the South, decided to run because he was appealing to a type of voter that would have been in that picture in 1984.
I mean, I will say his campaign didn't find this picture, but then neither did the Washington Post. And again, the Washington Post is not a serious newspaper. It's a joke. It's
nor his primary opponents.
I agree. But the Post got, which is this kind of newsletter run by the richest man in the world, Jeff Bezos, really a shameful publication. But it got pretty forensic with Ed Gillespie, I remember. Quite. They couldn't find a yearbook photo of the guy running for governor. Why do you think that is?
I got to tell you, this is some of the worst opposition research I've ever seen in my life. How none of his primary opponents or his political opponents or the local papers or the national press, for that matter, found this picture is beyond me. This was a hotly contested race. You would think that they would leave no stone unturned. They would have talked to friends from college to find out what happened. They did not. This was poor opposition research by everybody involved here, and it's time for him to go. He should resign tonight.
Not even opposition research, just like reporting. It'd be interesting. Maybe we can get the Washington Post guys who were assigned to Ralph Northam on the show to explain how they missed this. The geniuses over there.
I've done operation research in my life, and the first thing you do is try to find pictures of them from when they were in college and try to find this is not.
The Post was pretty good at that when it came to
him to find out what he was about.
Because they're shills, that's why. It's not a newspaper. It's a newsletter for the Democratic Party, as you well know. Chris Hahn, great to see you. Thank you.
Nice seeing you, Tucker.